Okay, we're back here with more Live from the Heartland. I'm talking with Francis Scudellari, the editor of the Urban Coaster, and Jim Ginderske, the publisher of the Urban Coaster.
Can I jump in there just
How
one?
do you say your name?
No, you got the name right, but our roles. There's actually we're all kind of doing all these jobs. We have a group, the Urban Coaster Inc. is actually what we call the publisher. So there's Terry Feingold, Tom Westgard, Francis Scudellari, and myself. Francis does do a huge amount of the editing and also all the layout, which I, every chance I get, try to give a shout out to him about that because it's so much work. And like all of us, he started with very little experience, and I think he does a fantastic job. Sorry to put you on the spot there, buddy.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So you're not the official publisher. The Urban Coaster is the publisher. I'm glad. I know you got a real cooperative spirit. How do you get news stories for your new paper? What are you doing? What's in it? Tell people about it. You certainly have covered some recent events in the neighborhood. You've had cooking articles. You've had articles by kids. You have up-and-coming cartoonists. Talk about how you attract people and how you decide what to put in it.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, there was actually a story in the New Yorker magazine about how the Village Voice started. And it was interesting because a lot of what they went through, we, looking at ourselves, saw that it was a very similar process. The one advantage they did have...
you make it as big as the New
yeah,
Yorker,
well,
too.
the advantage they had over us is that Norman Mailer just had written a best-selling book and had a big check that he could sink into it, which we don't have. But we sit around. I mean, some stories are obvious, like the Heartland obviously closing and reopening is a big story in the neighborhood, so that's an easy one that we can go out and cover. But the really interesting thing is that people want to write for us, and we've had no problem with just people sending us in stories that they want to do. We have a dedicated food column, which is Terry Feingold and Nancy Bacchus, who are caterers in the neighborhood. We have a dedicated theater reviewer, Lori Grauer, who goes around and reviews plays for us. We have Alex Graff, you mentioned, the 11-year-old who writes a regular column. We have a fire safety column. We have a legal column. So these people are all people in the neighborhood who were energized by there being this new entity and want to contribute to it. I mean, we have, as you mentioned, also Sam Sharp did the banner, local person, does the comic. Alicia Saxton did our logo. Another local person. Pretty much everyone that contributes to this paper is from Rogers Park, committed to Rogers Park, and wants to get involved in getting information out to the people of Rogers Park.
And I noticed you had some sports in there recently, and it wasn't even on the back page.
It was the Sweetheart Run at the Heartland. We ran the story on that, and we're happy to run more and more sports as the opportunity arises.
Yeah, one of the things that we're obviously not looking to just stay small. We want to, kind of grow into Edgewater. We've already made some inroads there. But one example of a good story we've been covering is the situation at Sullivan High School. Again and again, you've seen other media show up when something goes wrong there, whether there's an incident of violence or some incident where somebody underperforms, and they shower a lot of negative attention on our community high school, and then they walk away. And it's really tough. There are flaws within the system there. There is a need for accountability and attention, and we're trying to provide that. Now, we're going to attend every LSC meeting and write about what happens at Sullivan's LSC meetings and start telling the community not just about the things that need to be improved, but also the things that are going very well over there. Because there's a good mix, and it's a complicated, or rather a complex story, but it's one that needs to be told, and I think a community paper is really we're the ones that are in the best position to be able to do that.
Putting out a newspaper, you referred to the New Yorker and how Norman Mailer put a big check in way back when it started. And so far, the big check has not come your way. So I know that you probably are pulling some money out of your meager pockets, and
Yes.
As well as selling some ads. And I don't need any figures on the cost of the ads, but I'm just wondering what it's like in this economy to go out to community businesses who are obviously feeling the stress and the pressure of tighter financial times and asking them to take ads.
Well, it's actually kind of a paradox because they are feeling a financial pinch, but that's also putting more pressure on them to advertise and also advertise locally. I think the advantage we have is we have these very local businesses wanting to reach the people in the neighborhood that are most likely to visit their business. And so we have a very dedicated person, Terry Feingold, who's out there banging
Pounding the
doors
streets,
and pounding the pavement to try and get these people to see the value in advertising with us. We also give people a really good deal, which is the other side of it. But for people, Rogers Park businesses to succeed, they need to reach people. Rogers Park and Edgewater businesses need to reach people in Rogers Park and Edgewater. And the best way they can do that is to advertise in a newspaper that is going to be in the hands of those potential customers.
Yeah, DevCore, just to add to that, DevCore did that study where they showed that millions, many, like, I forget how many, but like $100 million. Basically, people leave the neighborhood to spend their money, and we think that's a huge mistake. And we want to give folks the opportunity to know about what's available within their own community, and this is a great place to do it.
Well, and there's lots more going on in the community. There's new bars, new restaurants, new stores opening up, even in these dire economic times.
Yes.
Certainly.
I'm talking with Francis Scudellari and Jim Ginderske of the Urban Coaster, a new newspaper that has been appearing on a regular basis every 2 weeks in our beloved Rogers Park. And we're talking to them about why they decided to put out a paper in these times and what they've been doing. Gentlemen, can you tell us what kind of stories you envision in the future? If you were going to look at this paper, and picture it a year from now, what do you think it will look like?
Well, I think we're going to continue to track the education system here. The youth services is a huge issue in Rogers Park. We try to be very pro-local business, which isn't to say that we're conservative, in the Republican pro-business sense. But the fact is that the local economy is where, all of our lives come together at the local level, and we're basically, we earn a living. So that's all really important, and we're going to continue our strong focus on those three areas.
Yeah, and the other thing is we're really committed to having a bilingual paper. And I think in a year, I will promise that we will have some Spanish content, because that's the other big challenge of Rogers Park is its diversity. And for information to get out widely in Rogers Park, you've got to be able to speak both English and Spanish. So that's something we're committed to doing.
That's a great idea. Usually you see that in left-wing sectarian organizations. They'll have you turn the paper over and the other back has an article too in Spanish. But I think it certainly is a great idea. Well, gentlemen, you have some other activities going on, not necessarily from the Urban Coaster, but you are involved in healthcare reform efforts, and you had an announcement you wanted to make, Jim Ginderske.
Yes. In Evanston, I don't know how many of you are following the single payer and the healthcare reform stuff through the Obama administration, but in Evanston, just over the border, about 6 blocks north of Rogers Park, 4 blocks off the Dempster L stop, there's going to be a single payer forum, and it's going to be pretty exciting. Dr. Quentin Young is going to be there. The president of ASME, Steve Edwards, Ann Sheets, and Bob Mueller also are going to be there discussing single payer and how we can influence the president and the folks working on healthcare reform to hopefully provide a single payer option or a public finance opt-in option for healthcare reform, which is coming hopefully this year.
I want to thank you all for coming on the show. How about telling us where they can pick up the Urban Coaster besides the Heartland Cafe?
After I mention that will be on April 4th at 2 o'clock at the Unitarian Church in Evanston, and there'll be a notice about it on www.theurbancoaster.com, which is our website.
That's healthcare reform, examining single payer.
Right. Sorry, I forgot to mention where it was and when it was. And our website is www.theurbancoaster.com. That's really the best place to find information about us.
I had one other question I wanted to ask you. Or it's probably a suggestion, but I'll try to put it in a question. I've seen the group of the Urban Coasters coasting around in here talking about the next issue and distribution, and it's as someone who has started a few newspapers in the past, it's great to see that process. I wonder if you do, or if you thought about taking that little road show of you sitting together and talking to any other venues or outlets, stores, hangouts in the neighborhood.
We've talked about it. we plan to.
I'm certainly the people at the Heartland are not trying to kick you out of there, but they just think that probably it's a way to spread the vibe about the paper.
We get around, we've been, Caribbean Bakery, Ayutla, and Clark, a lot of places that maybe everybody doesn't know about. Many of them are advertisers. The old Montenegro Cafe that's now closed, Mike's Place on Western Avenue, Metropolis.
Oh, where the cops hang out.
Yeah, well, at Mike's Place they hang out.
At Mike's Place.
It's a very quiet place. They sit there and on their breaks and do reports. So.
All right. Thanks for coming on Live from the Heartland. Thanks, Francis Scudellari. Thank you, Jim Ginderske. Thank you, all the people from the Urban Coaster.